On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, our guest is Robert Weaver, the founder and owner of Freedom Wildlife Solutions and Pest Control in Clayton, North Carolina. We talked to Robert about how he got into the wildlife trapping business after he got out of the military. Some of the things he did, one of his first jobs was how to get birds out of Walmarts. And he tells us how he did that, and then why and how he started his own business and the services they provide. We talk about how to get squirrels out of your attic. We talk about bats. We talk about snakes in your house. We talk about termites. It is enough to make you not sleep at night, but it really was an interesting conversation. And we also talk a little bit about pest control. So if you're interested in how people get stuff out of your attic, how these animals get into your attic, what they can and can't do, listen in. I think you'll find it interesting.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we have Robert Weaver, the owner and founder of Freedom Wildlife Solutions and Pest Control. We're going to talk a little bit to Robert about how he got in the pest control business and why he also offers animal removal services, including birds and squirrels and raccoons and bats. And who knows, maybe some alligators down the road he said he might get into. So that is a unique thing. You don't see many people that offer that. Talk a little bit about that, maybe get a couple interesting stories of where animals have appeared where they shouldn't have been. And I think you'll find it interesting, so keep listening. But before we get to that, I would like you to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it's on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, or any of the other social media channels of the Best of Johnston County podcast. The Best of Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for over 18 months. We're well over 85 episodes now. So please go back and listen to our previous episodes. We've had lots of interesting community members, most of the county commissioners, state house members, Congressman Brad Knott, other small business owners. If you love Johnston County as much as I do, this is the podcast for you. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Well, no problem. We met through Launch JoCo and a couple chamber events. I wanted to have you come in. I find it fascinating that anybody that actually makes a living trapping things, but somebody has to do it. So tell the audience what's your name, where you're from, what you do.
I'm Rob Weaver, owner of Freedom Wildlife Solutions and Pest Control here in Clayton, North Carolina. We do everything when it comes to pest and wildlife control. We remove the wildlife. We treat general purpose or general treatment for pest control. Termites, anything from ants all the way up to raccoons in the attic, we can take care of it.
Oh, man. So how did you get started? I know you were in the military at some point, yes. I think.
Yep.
When were you in the military?
So I joined in 2002, just after 9/11. I served until 2014 on active duty on that side. When I left in 2014, moved out this way from Fort Bragg and kind of fell backwards into what I do. I worked for another company doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a job at, was it wildlife and pest, or just wildlife and you added pest as you started yours?
So it was actually just birds.
Birds, okay.
Yeah, so I worked for a company that all they did was bird removal. If you ever go into a Walmart, you'll see like the birds flying around in the Walmart. My job was to show up and get those birds out of Walmart within 3 hours.
Okay.
So we would hit all the commercial sites, we'd put up temporary nets, we'd catch them all, remove them. As we went through the licensing process for the wildlife, I ended up getting mine and asking the company, could I do everything else on the side? Nothing to, compete with them, all the residential type wildlife work. And they approved me for that, and then it kind of took off. It wasn't even 6 months to a year, it was going so fast for me that I had to have a conversation with my wife whether we were going to just go down that path or if I was going to keep trying to balance it out, but something had to give at that point.
Right, you were too busy.
Yeah.
So it's nice that you started as a side business and it became a full-time business. So how exactly do you get a bird out of a Walmart?
So there's a specialized netting system you would put up in there. It's a live catch netting. You put it up and they are about 30 feet long. You attach it to the rafters in the ceiling, and when they fly, you figure out their natural flight paths, because every animal has a natural path. You put it up in between, it catches them, you lower the net, put them in a box and take them outside.
Huh. So do you have to have like a boom lift to get up to them? I mean, Walmarts are tall.
Yeah, no, we're using a specialized pole that was for the company. They have patented that product that they use over there.
Okay.
But it was a special pole. It was a one-man operation. I was able to put a net up, and I would have a net up and running within 15, 20 minutes of being in the store.
Okay. And then the bird would fly into it, and you'd get it.
Yep, and you would lower it down and then pull it out of the net. The hardest part was getting them untangled out of the net, but you'd get them outside and let them go.
Okay. I wonder, well, what's the best way to get birds out of my garage? Because I have had a hell of a time with birds in my garage.
Daytime is a little bit more difficult. As the evening hours come in, well, you want to try to keep the garage more dark and outside more light. And that's the biggest thing, is a lot of times you'll notice they'll fly at the windows, stuff like that, if they ever get into a house, because they're looking for escape routes. So if you can get your garage as dark as possible, leave the door open so the light that it sees is outside, that's going to be your best case scenario to get that.
Okay.
If you can't get it, that's where we come in, because we can come in there and my guys will go in and just catch it and get it out of your garage and figure out how to keep them out.
Okay. All right. So like dusk, it'll fly out maybe if I just keep my garage door open.
Yeah, so putting lights out, that's why I say like right at those hours, it's a little difficult on before they go to roost versus that and go to sleep. But when they see that big light, obviously keeping the door open at all times, letting them get that opportunity to go out.
Okay.
But if they can see those brighter areas, they're going to go for it.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know they've flown into windows and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So their eyesight, I guess, birds' eyesight is not good in general.
They don't.
Eagles do, but I mean, I'm talking about most birds.
So their eyesight's actually very good, but it's like they can't see glass. They don't understand those types of ideas. If you've ever been in your house and had one hit a window, you understand that very well. But they just panic when they get in there. So they're just trying to figure out and hit everything, and they don't know what's kind of going on. It's an unknown surrounding, for them. So letting it open, you can try to harass them out if you get like a bag on a pole, like a regular shopping bag on a pole will be enough to kind of guide them is what you're wanting to do. I got you.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So what other animals? You do bats?
We do bats. We do it all. So bats are big right now. We're in a season where we're not actually allowed to remove them unless they're in a living area of the house. So if one got it in the middle of the night, we can come get that one out. But if you have them in your attic right now, it's the breeding season, so they're protected here in North Carolina.
Okay.
So from May 1st to July 31st, they kind of have to stay, but then we can kick them out after that. Bats is a big project, though, because they can get into anywhere. Pretty much I can stick my pinky throughout a house. So we do really good inspections on the house. We go ahead and find anywhere they can get in. We can seal off any areas that they're not actively using in the meantime during this period, but then once August 1st comes out, we are able to go ahead and put the valves in and kick them out.
What about squirrels?
Yeah, we handle squirrels. We have 2 big seasons for squirrels, one in the spring, one in the fall. Typically homeowners deal with them during those breeding periods when they're going ahead and nesting. They'll find them in the attics. It's interesting because you can see how long squirrels have been really growing up in houses depending on the nest that they build within the attics. If it's a first generation ever using an attic, they'll bring a lot of materials from outside into the house. So there'll be a lot of leaves and twigs up in the attic that they brought in. As the generations have learned that houses are a nice place for them to have, they're young, you'll notice that all they use is the insulation in the attic at that point. So they have shifted completely from natural materials to man-made materials.
How about that? Yeah. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting thing seeing them do that.
So, if as a homeowner, how can I prevent squirrels and bats from getting into my attic and my crawl spaces?
So squirrels is going to be the easier of the two to prevent it on your own. Squirrels, most houses that we find squirrels in has a tree or a bush touching the roof line. It gives it that direct route onto the roof. Once it finds its way on the roof, it'll find a way in. Like the teeth on a squirrel is like having a chainsaw built into you. They can get into areas. They just need the opportunity. You take away the opportunity by removing trees and bushes away from the house. You greatly reduce the risk of dealing with squirrels.
Okay.
Bats, on the other hand, is a little bit more difficult. If they move into a neighborhood, they're just going to bounce from house to house. as companies like ours kick them out, unfortunately. They are protected so that we can't just actually physically remove them. We have to put up one-way devices to let them leave. And the big thing that people don't realize is houses are not made to keep wildlife out. They're made and built to keep, the inside climatized for you. They're made and built to keep the moisture, away when it rains. But they are not built to keep wildlife or pests out. There's between a crawl space or an attic. There's all kinds of gaps that allow for pests, from the smallest, ants all the way up to, I've seen brand new houses with gaps big enough to let full-size raccoons in.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's incredible. We see it all the time, that it's really just about how the houses are built that allows these animals to get in.
Okay. I got you. Raccoons, those are pretty good size.
Yeah, they can get into anything. A hole has to be about the size of a softball for them to squeeze through. And then if they can get their head through, they'll squeeze the rest of their body through.
Oh, my goodness. That is interesting. So, I guess, what is the most interesting thing you've had to try to remove from a house or a business when you were doing commercial?
So bats has been the most surprising, I guess, in numbers. We've dealt with a medical facility here in Johnston County that had a couple thousand bats in it that we removed. When it hit the 1,000 mark on us when we were videoing it in the evening and when they were coming out, we were just kind of astonished at how many were in there.
Golly, that's a lot of bats.
You don't realize it, that how many can be in there, and you don't see them. You might be able to hear them or smell them, but they get piled in on top of each other. So that was quite interesting on that side of it. The hardest thing for me probably was trying to get a groundhog out of a engine bay of a car. It was in there, it would not let go and go away. So I spent, I think, a little over an hour trying to get a groundhog out of the engine area of a car.
Oh my goodness. So you try to capture all these animals alive?
So we follow all North Carolina state laws. So It really just depends on, the situation and everything else. We try to do everything as humanely as possible. And I say that because, like, putting a squirrel trap on a roof in the middle of the summertime is not very humane if you're not going to be able to get there within a couple minutes.
Right.
But we try to as much as possible, but we do have to follow NC state laws.
Okay, I got you. Man, that's interesting. All right. So, and as your business grows down east, you said you would probably, do you have to go to training? Is there training? I mean, I know you had a job and they sort of taught you how to catch birds at Walmart, but are there courses for this? Is there online or certificates?
Yes. So on the wildlife side, to just do it in North Carolina, there's a 2-day course through the state you have to go do and take a test on. It's the Wildlife Damage Control Agent course put on through the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. It's a pretty good course. You're not going to become an expert out of it, that's for sure, though.
Right.
We pride ourselves on sending our guys to a lot of industry courses as well. We want to be the top-notch wildlife company in the area. So we send our guys to NACOA, which is the National Wildlife Control Operators Association. That's the wildlife association for us, and they have a lot of industry training and certifications that we get our guys to go through to try to stay on top of it.
What about foxes and bobcats?
So we do get calls.
There's some in our neighborhood.
Yeah, we don't get so many calls for bobcats, being that they usually like to hide in like denser wooded areas. They don't usually come out into HOAs as much.
Right.
Foxes, on the other hand, are quite different. We'll see a lot of grays and reds around houses. Coyotes have pushed them closer to houses where coyotes will stay a little bit further away typically. Foxes can go ahead and put a den underneath the porch because they know it's safer. We do deal with them. We try to evict them if possible first, meaning like we'll put in one-way devices, kick them out of areas, like secure areas around like sheds, stuff like that to keep them out.
What's a one-way device? You've said that twice now.
Yeah. So it's different depending on the critter, but it's basically a one-way door. So when they come out of it, the flap or whatever the device is, depending on the animal, closes, so they can't get back in after they leave. So we're able to let them go on, find a new home on their own, which is always the best case scenario for wildlife. And then we can seal it up and prevent them from ever getting back in.
Are foxes dangerous to humans, children, pets? in general, or can they be? I mean, I know they have rabies, but I'm just curious,
Yeah.
like, if it's a fox, something I should be afraid of, because they're not a lot bigger than some dogs.
Yeah, they're definitely small, and in most cases, the only time that we really see them being aggressive is when they're rabid on that side of it. They can become used, or can get used to being around humans, which can always throw off the natural demeanor on there, or that natural fear that they should have. That's why you should never feed animals. You bring them in, we see raccoons being fed, and they come up to the porches, all that, and then eventually they're not afraid of humans, and they may bite you even though they're not sick. And once that happens, they have to get tested, so they'll have to be euthanized and tested for it. So foxes in general shouldn't be afraid of them, but you should respect all wildlife. Keep a good distance from them, not try to feed them or handle them. And they
Right.
Yeah.
Do you do snakes?
We do. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I guess snakes get in crawl spaces too and get in
Yeah.
attics.
Yeah.
I mean, they're quite resourceful, I think.
They are. So they're going to go wherever the food is. So any wildlife species that's out there is going to be looking for food, water, or shelter.
Okay.
Mainly when we see snakes inside of a house, usually it indicates some type of other small problem going on. A lot of times it's going to be rodent problems. You have mice, snakes want an easy meal, they're going to come in for it.
Okay.
So if you've ever had a mouse in your house, you can have a snake in your house. And that's where people get a little freaked out when they have a snake going down their hallway.
Okay. That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah.
So, but if I have pest control, in theory, I shouldn't
Yep.
have mice or
Yeah.
mouses is not a word. But anyway, I should not have mice in my house.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll transition to the second part of your business, which is pest control services.
Yeah, so we added pest control in, it wouldn't be 2023 into our services. So we were wildlife only in the beginning. But we did find that, some pest control companies weren't aware of wildlife species and all the signs that were there, and weren't diagnosing issues properly from our side of it. And as much as we love education and learning as much as we can within our company, we knew that we could provide a little bit of a better service there, showing them, we've had situations where a pest control company was telling somebody that they had a mouse problem in their attic. There was a pile of droppings in the middle of the attic. They put a bait station up there. Droppings kept coming. They called us in to do an inspection. They said, well, my pest control company said it's a good sign that there's more and more droppings showing up. It means they're going to the bait station to eat it. And I said, no, it's the bats that are sitting right above your bait station. So being able to diagnose what the actual issue is, what the reason the issue is there, and ensuring it goes away was why we started doing that transition over, because we knew, especially on the rodent side, that it wasn't being done properly.
Okay. So you spray for all types of pests?
We do all the pests, anything, like I said, from the ants all the way up to the roaches, and we do bed bugs, termite, all of it.
Right.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
And you, I guess, like most pest control, put people on a monthly or bi-monthly subscription. You come by for 30 minutes, de-web what's going on,
Yep.
look for signs of rodent, and spray something, I guess.
Yeah. So we would like to have a relationship with our customers on that side of it, because we want to know what they're seeing. Not every chemical is the same. We do run a little bit different, where all our chemicals within our truck, we carry a lot of different things so we can treat every house the way it needs to be treated. We look at it like if you were a doctor and just prescribed one medication across the board to every patient, no matter what they have. And that's what a lot of pest control companies will do out there. We want to get out there, do a quick assessment of the house, have a conversation with the customer, and then use the chemical that's appropriate for what they're seeing or their neighborhood and all that. And then we spray it and treat it as necessary.
What's the best way to get rid of silverfish?
Silverfish?
That seems to be the thing that gets in my house more than anything else.
Yeah, so that's always a sign of some moisture issues. Exterior perimeter if they're coming in from that side, but it could be that they've already taken up residence somewhere within the house itself. a good thorough inspection of the house to figure out where that problem's coming from, whether it's crossing the barrier of your house or if they're already inside the house. So if you do a perimeter treatment on a house, but they're breeding within the house somewhere, that perimeter treatment is never going to do anything.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We haven't had as many lately. I know they like cardboard.
They do.
So if they can get into your attic where you got boxes, they're like happier than a pig in slop there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, they're not really harmful. They're just kind of there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They actually like the backside of wallboard or drywall because that has that cardboard or that paper that's on the back of it. Same idea. So they'll chew that off as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Do y'all do termites?
We do, yes.
Okay, so what do y'all provide for termites?
So it depends on the situation. We want to get out there. There are bait stations that we use, and that's a proactive approach, and we are able to monitor on a regular basis. When we go out there, we can see if there's activity. The good thing about a bait station is when termites come in, they take the bait, they take it back to the colony and kills the whole colony. Liquid treatment around the house, is definitely a technique that works, and is very good on or used for if you have an active infestation or anything like that. Obviously, you can't monitor to see how it's going, though. So that's the nice thing about the bait stations over that. And so if we're going in where somebody has active termites, we want to get in there with the liquid, kill the termites that are on the house, and then go from there.
Right. And do y'all provide I try to use the word bond, but a termite, I don't know, a certificate that can pass when you sell the house and stuff like that?
So yes, we do warranty all our work on that side. So whenever we do have termite work, I mean, it's in our contract or how it will go in, whether it's and we'll do an annual reassessment of the house, making sure we're not seeing anything going on. If you're a regular pest control customer and you have the termite stations, we're probably going to check them a little more frequently just to stay on top and make sure that we won't see anything.
How common are termites in this area? I've not had a termite problem with any of the houses I've owned in Johnston County, but we definitely had a termite problem where I grew up in Laurinburg, not too far from here.
Yeah.
Just curious, is that a problem in this area?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I mean, it can do more damage than pretty much everything else that we deal with when it comes to your house. So it gets in there and goes unnoticed for years. You don't want to be the person that finds out you have a termite problem by your house starting to fall apart.
Right. What are some things you can do to prevent a termite problem? Other than hiring a pest control company to have them regularly inspect, what are some things that your average homeowner can do?
So keeping termites away is going to be a little bit of a problem trying to do it by yourself on that side of it. But keeping wood off the ground as much as possible, making sure that you don't leave boards underneath your crawl space, and moisture problems in your crawl space are definitely going to be conducive to bringing in those termites. They're going to want that moisture in the wood there. So if you go underneath your crawl space, you're starting to see some indications of moisture issues. You can see maybe your insulation starting to pull down. It'll pull down when you have moisture issues. If you have standing water down there, obviously that's a problem.
Right. So I don't know these things.
Yes.
Where do termites come from? Do they come down the street? Do they come? I mean, how do they get there?
So they're always in the ground. They're always out there foraging.
Okay, so they're in the ground.
They're in the ground.
Okay.
So they're always out there. They're always foraging, though. So even when they find a food source, they're always looking for their next food source because they don't know when one's going to end.
Okay.
So when you have a colony on your yard, and a typical yard will have a colony on it, it's just whether it comes down to your house or not.
Okay.
So I mean, they're out there all over the place, and they do great things. They break down the debris in the forest, all that stuff. The problem is when they're trying to break down your house, it becomes a problem.
Right. So do they eat anything other than wood?
So they eat the cellulose materials. So anything that's going to be like that. So if you leave cardboard, like we were talking about, on the ground, you'll find termites going and starting to attack that after a while. So if you put those types of things in your crawl space, we've seen it in garages too. They'll come up in garages where people put cardboard boxes, and they'll start eating the cardboard boxes within the garage coming from the cracks.
Okay. Well, that explains why the termite company I had one time drilled a hole in the garage floor.
Yep, the slab. Yep, to get a treat underneath the
Yeah.
garage. Yep.
Okay. Well, that would explain that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I find that all fascinating. I could talk to Robert Weaver all day about all these animals. Now I'm going to go home and I'm not going to be able to sleep because I'm going to start thinking that I have squirrels and bats and snakes in my house, which I don't. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I'm going to be thinking about it. I'm going to go start looking because I'm a little OCD. And I'll be like, okay, like, do I have these animals in my house? Am I going to have to call Freedom Wildlife Solutions or not? So anyway, let's ask you a quick question here before we wrap up about, I met you through Launch JoCo.
Yes.
Why did you choose to get involved with Launch JoCo, and what did it provide? It's a sort of, for people listening, we've talked about a lot on this podcast. It's a class for new businesses. It's almost like a little business incubator where they get some instruction, and then they get placed with a mentor who works with them individually for 6 or 9 months, and it helps get businesses, it helps them grow. Yeah, these businesses already exist. They're not like starting, but it helps them grow. Why did you choose to get involved in it? Because, clearly you're already very successful.
Yeah, so I got out of the truck a little over a year ago now, where I'm not out there running routes all the time or doing any of the hard labor that my guys are out there doing every day. When I got out of the truck, though, I didn't know what to do anymore. I knew how to catch things. I knew how to treat and figure out what problems were. But when you go back to diagnose what's going on with your business, I didn't know where to start. I knew I wanted to continue to grow my business. I know I want to continue to grow it as long as I can and as big as I can to give my guys and my team opportunity to be able to grow within my company. So I went there trying to figure out how to become the best business owner I could. That was my starting point on that, and this journey on transitioning from, being a great technician over to being a great business owner and leader.
Well, that's cool. And you enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
You met people who are going to meet me.
Yeah.
I've met you. Like I found it to be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
I wish I could have worked with every single person I met there.
Yeah.
Working with Houston Colson, who's a previous guest on the podcast, and Roof Stepper. Go back and listen to that episode. It's really good. All about roofing and mistakes homeowners make in choosing a roofer. We answered those questions on that podcast. So I guess how many employees do you have now, and what service areas do y'all service?
So right now we have 13 people within our company on payroll. It's split between our inspectors, our like actual wildlife technicians, and then our pest technicians, and then we have 2 people in the office.
Okay.
Answering the phones and making sure we get out there as soon as possible when people have an emergency.
So do you serve you 24/7?
So we're not 24/7.
Okay.
Yeah, we go from 8 to 7 for our office hours on it Monday through Friday.
Okay.
We started with just Wake, Harnett, and Johnston County, but we've added several since then. We're now in Durham, Wilson, Wayne, Nash, Lee, Cumberland County as well.
Oh, man, you like to drive.
We do, but one wildlife job can take all day. So we go out there, we're doing the job, and then coming home. If our wildlife work, it makes sense.
Okay.
Our pest side, we run them a little ragged right now.
Right, I can understand that. Well, that's great. That's great. So how can people reach out to you and Freedom Wildlife Solutions?
Yeah, so you can contact us through our website at freedomwildlifesolutions.com. You can give us a direct call at 919-584-8650. We're on all the social media platforms out there. Right. So anyway.
And you'd be willing to go speak to community groups,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
churches about what you do, how they can, right? because part of your thing is education.
Absolutely.
It's not just helping, but you're big on education. I know your wife's involved as well.
Yes.
So you're willing to speak to groups, school groups, anybody that would like to learn about wildlife and how to prevent them getting in and the humane treatment of them and stuff like that. You'd be glad to talk to them, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. We'll be happy to.
Right. It's fascinating. I can talk to Robert Weaver and an hour go by and it's just nothing because I don't know anything about it, right? I grew up in the suburbs. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't know anything. I got like a pest control company. So, the thought that you could go do all the things you do and enjoy it, which would scare me to death, is fascinating to me. So the last question I ask everybody on this podcast is, what do you love most about Johnston County?
I love the small town feel of Johnston County. Even as they're growing, they're still holding that throughout the towns. Living in Clayton, where I grew up up north, left with the military. I definitely did not have the small town feel up there. So that's such a great feeling to have down here, and I love it every day.
Well, that's great. That's great. And a lot of people say the small town feel, the people,
Yeah.
That's what makes Johnston County great. The community, anybody doing anything to help you, people you don't even know will help you.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's very friendly, and that's what makes it great. So anyway, we'd like to thank Robert Weaver of Freedom Wildlife Solutions for being our guest on this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast. Feel free to reach out to him at freedomwildlifesolutions.com, and all of his social media channels will be glad to come and speak to your community group, your church group, your school about what he does and how you can prevent some of this, and they can help you if you have a problem with wildlife in your home or in your business, as well as pest inspections as well. If you would be so kind as to like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast down below, and give us a 5-star review down below so that we'll know what you like and dislike about the Best Johnston County podcast. And if you like, follow, and subscribe wherever you're seeing, whether it be Apple, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, or any of the other social media channels, you'll be made aware of future episodes of the Best of Johnston County podcast. The Best of Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for well over 18 months and will continue into the future. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.